Hi everybody, welcome back to Hometown History. I'm Dami.
And I'm Jamie.
And tonight we have Jeff Lau, who is the owner of the Pheasant Run Greenhouse and Farm, which is where we're filming at, and we have Roger Wilson, who is an author and an educator. So we actually have his book here with us. So Roger, would you like to tell us a little bit about the title of your book and why you wrote it?
Yes, just another view of the book because it has a Farmall tractor on it, which is an important part of the story. The title comes from a grandmother who lived in Phoenix, Arizona, but she was known as quite the worker. And they would visit every 2 or 3 years, a long drive from Phoenix. And she had, her mother was Grandma's daughter, and she had another daughter in Phoenix. And years after it happened, we discovered that she had written back to Phoenix, to her daughter, that what this place needed was less ice cream and more paint.
That's sacrilege.
Well,
always
that's right.
more ice cream.
Well, that's right. What she meant was my parents had something of a struggle on the farm, but they knew how to have a good treat. And so about a mile from our farm was known as Pete's Gas Station.
Which is, where was your farm, Roger?
The farm is close to Bridgeton, very close to Muddy Creek in the southern end of York County. If you go from Glen Rock to Storchtown to Fawn Grove and continue toward Muddy Creek, you get to Bridgeton, another village downstream is Woodbine, and that'll come back in another story, that location. We would drive out to Pete's Gas Station and buy a half gallon of ice cream, and since at that time there were 4 children and later 2 more, the half gallon of ice cream would be set on the table, and the whole carton opened up and cut into 6 pieces.
Okay.
So
For
then
equity.
you were allowed to do whatever you wanted with your piece of ice cream. And the buildings on the farm did need some paint, and so that's where the title comes from.
That's such a good, and it's a really interesting book, Roger, because you broke it up into tiny little stories, like takeaways from just what it was like to grow up on a farm. And the way you write, it feels like you're kind of there with you. It's very accessible, and frankly, they're kind of funny. I found myself chuckling at a few of them.
Good, because I have a real passion for stories. I think stories are really deeply ingrained in our evolution. I think a lot of the brain was developed actually while we were sitting around a campfire telling stories about what's the best way to hunt.
Right, yeah.
And the hunt has the great 3 elements of a story, you know, the beginning, the middle, and the end. And I've been a teacher most of my life and done a fair amount of work with stories with children. And one of the big things they need to learn is that nearly every event can be a story. It doesn't have to be, you know, the big event when somebody won a prize or something. But if you walk down to the farm pond and your dog fell through the ice, you know, that's
It's
a
a good
story.
story, right,
That's a story.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, you own and operate a greenhouse, and I'm sure you've got some good stories of what it's like to be, because you are the owner, and you are the salesman, and you are the social media content creator, and you do all the things, right?
Do it all.
Yeah, so do you have any, like, favorite memories, or maybe something that important that stands out to you here?
Well, most of the things that stand out in this type of business are usually catastrophes.
Oh no!
But I mean, so there's 2 sides of what I do: the growing side of it, and then as well as like the retail customer side of it. And the most positive and best stories I have is seeing people light up when they get to buy the flowers that I grew. I mean, that's my favorite part of spring, is to be able to help somebody that's struggling with a certain spot that they want to plant, and I help them figure out what to buy, and they just light up and they're so excited, and thank me 20 times before they leave. Like that's what makes all the cold winter ugly days more bearable.
I just bought a plant for my office because I now have an office with no windows, and it's taken some getting used to. So I went and got some plants that were not used to, like, they didn't need light, and I got a money tree, and I killed it. It's dead, and I know, and I was like, what's the etiquette of how long can I wait to, like, take it back and be like, you gave me a bad plant? I'm like, no, I would never do that. Like, clearly it's my fault. Have you ever had customers come back and blame you?
Yeah, usually it's because they didn't water it, and then they water it really good right before they bring it back and say, see, I watered it.
Oh. How do you say the proof is right here?
Well, I have 20 of them over here that look real nice. So,
so you've learned some tips and tricks, and Roger, in your story, I like planting myself, and I remember in one of your stories you used a salt and pepper shaker to plant seeds. Because, like, you know how you have seeds and they, like, stick to your fingers and they're all wet, but you use the salt and pepper shaker.
That was for cabbage seed. When we started growing cabbage, Dad bought the plants already grown by somebody else. But then he soon learned, of course, it was much cheaper to buy your seeds. And cabbage seeds are bigger than pepper, but if you take a pepper shaker and make every single hole bigger, and you're down on your knees in the heat and the dust, shaking out seeds in a row, and then pretty soon you have plants that then we use the transplanter to plant the cabbage. Cabbage was one of my dad's favorite. His absolute favorite was potatoes, but second was cabbage for some reason. So Dad grew quite a variety of tomatoes and cabbage and potatoes, in addition to hay for the one cow we had.
It's interesting that you talk about the salt and pepper shakers, because Jamie and I saw a video on Facebook, this is probably a year ago, during COVID, some kids would get on their skateboards and they would take, like, Parmesan shakers full of wildflower seeds.
Oh, yeah.
And in the cities, along, like, the cracks in the sidewalk, they were putting the seeds out, and then they came back and all these beautiful wildflowers grew up in an urban area. So
from shaking them out.
Yeah, maybe they read your book.
One of the stories that you mentioned in here, Roger, is of the sounds of the farm. And I'm going to ask you, Jeff, after I talked to Robert about a story, about what your favorite sound is, or your favorite sense in general, because it's something about growing outside that you hear things and you see things and you smell things and you taste things. I think that's what makes it so special. But for you, Roger, you wrote that there was something about the name of this section is going to the barn to hear the rain. And you list some things, and people who are listening who grew up on farms or have some experience will probably have this recall back to them, but can you hear a flock of chickens as you walk past them? I mean, I can hear it. Can you hear them, their wings flapping?
Yeah, sure.
Or trying to start the stubborn tractor. Or the pig's high squeal. The corn picker stripping ears from the stalk. That's actually something I don't know what it sounds like.
Well, corn pickers, of course, are much bigger. My dad was very proud that the next piece of equipment he bought after the Farmall H was a one row, I'll repeat, one row, new idea corn picker.
Wow.
And I believe it makes a different sound than, they're all multiples of, well, there were 2 for a long time, and then 4 rows, and then 8 rows. About the biggest I've seen around here is 12 rows, but if you're picking 12 rows of corn at a time, it's not the same noise as a bigger one.
Okay.
Plus, a big difference is we picked whole ears. In other words, that corn picker only took the ear and put it in a wagon. It didn't shell it. So the combines of today are also shelling it, and so a much different noise.
All in one thing.
Yes, well, that's that even helped me remember some of those noises. And noises are a great way to make a, we often depend on the vision, but if you get the noise in there, it makes it a fuller picture. So, and the barn when it rained was the absolute favorite noise because it had a tin roof. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that you don't have to have a barn, you just have to have the right kind of roof. And I'm fortunate, I just got my garage in New Park re-roofed with metal. It's not quite the same as the barn, but
gives you memories of your
pretty
youth.
close.
Yeah.
And so I still, once in a while when it's raining, will go out to the garage just for that. Yeah, it's a great memory.
Jeff, your favorite scent of being out here at the greenhouse?
Scent?
Or I'm sorry, scents in general.
I love the sound of the tractor. Anytime I'm usually on it though but I love that sound. But my favorite sound is like right now in the summertime when there's crickets. I love the sound of crickets. This is kind of a weird one too. I love the smell of fresh mulch. Most people think it kind of stinks, but for me that signifies like the beginning of spring. And so when we get our first load of mulch here, I'm like a little kid, I could go, oh, look, the mulch is here.
That's how dandelions are
Yes.
for me. And it's beginning of spring,
Yeah.
it's beginning to come. Dami, what's your favorite?
I like the smell, like when you're starting up the tractor and that like gasoline smell.
What?
Yeah, it's probably not a good thing to breathe in
Okay,
too.
kids, don't huff gasoline. That is bad for you.
I like that smell.
No, I know what you
And
mean.
we have the tin roof over the back porch.
You like
Like my
that.
dad would always go outside if there was a thunderstorm. That was like the place he was
Oh,
at, sitting
yeah.
out there during
Yeah,
storms and stuff. So,
Hmm.
and right now we have oak trees on my property, so you hear the acorns hitting the tin
Oh,
roof.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
My little Pomeranian's afraid.
Oh.
But,
So as we're kind of nearing the end of our conversation, Roger, you wrote this book to tell stories of what it was like growing up on a farm. And there are a lot of kids who are not going to be able to write this book. We aren't growing up on farms anymore.
One of the huge changes, I thought about, it's been 70 years since the farm. And the obvious one is I've already mentioned about how big equipment has become. But we're still a lot of farming. One of the neatest things I learned when you had the first part was that York County has more acres of farm, than Lancaster. But we have far fewer farms. And some of our operations are gigantic by our scale. When we grew up, if somebody had, a 200-acre farm, that was big. Not far from us was a farmer that he had two different places he farmed, and he farmed 500 acres, and he was considered like, the biggest time farmer. Well, I have a former sixth grade student that farms 2,000 acres with two other people. He farms 2,000 acres with two other people, and that's all because of big equipment. And he's only doing corn and soybeans. He's not doing a variety of things. Right. And another nice change for me is that you mentioned the Amish. There's lots of Amish that are close to the Susquehanna River because they came across the Normanwood Bridge. I live in Fawn Township, and next to that is Lower Chancellor Township, and it has lots of Amish. It's been a huge change in the last 25 years. And another farmer lived on our farm. We still call it the Wilson Farm for 30 years. But after that, an Amish family lived, and so an Amish family lives on the farm I grew up on. And I have a connection with him through because he owns a one-room school, which is another interest of mine. So I get to visit my farm. I still, and when I first started to visit, he had 7 children and 11 horses, and he now has 9 children and 14 horses. And so I tease him about, does he know where all these, children are coming from. Anyway, it's just such a thrill to visit that farm and know that it's going to stay a farm for a long time.
Yep. Well, and what Jeff offers here is a chance for a lot of kids to come and see, like, here's what a plant looks like, or here's, you have pumpkins back here, so you give people from the city and from suburbia a chance to come out and be among the flowers and among the plants.
And we're expanding that, actually. I'm planning on getting animals. I just planted a butterfly bush maze, and we're going to start with chickens and goats to start, but hopefully we'll get more. But we do field trips with local preschools and stuff like that, where we, I mean, a lot of them, like you said, have never been to a place like this. And so that's part of our business model here, is not just about selling plants, but the experience, to be able to come and, you know, sometimes parents will be here for, 2 hours because their kids don't want to leave.
Aww.
And they purchased their plants an hour ago, but they're still here playing. And,
That's a huge compliment.
yeah.
It is.
Well, it shows that you're providing a community service, that people can come here and feel like they can hang out. I mean, we encourage you guys to come down here because you can see a gazebo room. One of the first times I was down here recently is because you hosted yoga. So, I mean, you're doing a lot of things to get people outside. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So like we said before, we're going to be taking a break next month, but you can come find us at History Storytellers Night on December 7th. So thank you guys for talking to us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.